year, which would be to the end of 44. And by that time, we were ready to take over and move them in and so forth. Now, in that group, there were 55 who already had PhDs, you see. So it was a very good group. The only one I had any trouble with had been a district attorney in Indiana and a Republican politician. And I had trouble with him over certain things. For example, the Civil War in Spain. I gave him the truth of the Civil War in Spain. I mean, this was not a communist revolt against the Catholic Church or something like this, you see, and that's what this guy was. So this is the substance of the book, Tragedy and Hope.
Did you know while you were working on this?
No. I was just trying to, keep a day-to-day basis.
But you realized at the end of the accumulation of research and...
Well, yes, I knew a hell of a lot more about most of this than most people. Now, I then spent 20 years writing it, from 45 to 65, and put it in, do you see, in 65. In the meantime, I had written a shorter book, which 15 publishers had rejected, and I had set it aside. I wrote it the first time in the only summer I had off, which was 1942. In that whole period, I went for 20 years without any time off. No sabbaticals, no anything. From 42 to 61, when I took off and went to England and did research. And then I got another sabbatical in 71, when I again went to England on a sabbatical. And so they owe me sabbatical time, whether I'll get it or not. I've asked for one semester of sabbatical before I retire. That simply means I get full pay for one semester. Instead of half pay or whatever it is. I don't know what it is. I can't even look in. I don't have time to look into it. But in any case, I worked out all of these things, and my first book had been rejected by 15 publishers. I had written it first in the summer of 34. I then spent the summer of 42 in Princeton, in Donald Stauffer's, and he died as Eastman Professor of Literature at Oxford after climbing the Pyrenees, running up and down the Pyrenees. And I wrote it in 42. Then I set that aside and wrote it a third time, just dashed it off. And that is the book, The Evolution of Civilizations. It's only 279 pages, but it's still the best thing, and there are a number of books that quote it as the best thing on why civilizations rise and fall and how they do and so on. So it's a big thing, you see. Now, this world since 1914 covers 70 years, from 1895 to 1965, and it's in that way, but it covers the whole world. So again, it's a pretty big thing because it goes into science and technology, as you will discover if you start reading the paperback, and economics, and as you see, I can do more in economics than economists can.
One thing that intrigues, well, just last night my wife, when I was talking about you, was the title of the book, Tragedy and Hope.
Yes, because
it's such a large title.
Yes. Now, what it means is this. I think it is absolutely tragic. It is shameful. It is sinful that Western civilization is going to go down the drain. When I wrote that book, which is less than 10 years ago, I had hope that we could save Western civilization. I am extremely skeptical now that it can be saved. I think we're just about finished. And I just threw a few things out here this morning in the class. You know, if we're going to allow a coal strike, and if we're going to overthrow the Portuguese government, because as soon as all these military dictatorships are not going to last, and so we get rid of a democracy because it wants to be a little liberal, and we put in a military dictatorship, well, then collapses, and what happens? The communists come in. This is what happened in Portugal. Salazar was there since 1927. You see? All right, now they suddenly try to establish some kind of a non-military dictatorship. He wasn't in the military, he was a college professor, but he was supported by the reactionary groups, and now they want to do something about that, and the same thing could happen in Greece. They're now going to probably, in Greece, try these generals who established the military dictatorship because we got them to do it, you see? And this gives the communists, and it could well be, now this is what's worrying Kissinger. He thinks the whole Mediterranean now is going to go communist. So we're going to go into war to prevent this? Oh, I mean, it's sick.
Let me go back.
Now,
when did you find a publisher for your book?
I found a publisher instantly because the first book, I'm in current history, an editor, and I used to write a good deal for them, and that's who called me up one Monday and wants me to write about Spain today, what's going to happen in Spain, and I said it would take too much time, I don't do it. So the people at Current History said to me in 60. I just mentioned I had this book. I had many books. I have a whole lot of books, half written and almost wholly written, you see. And they said, have you ever asked Peter Rittner? And I says, I never heard of him. Who was he? Call him up at Macmillan. So right to the phone. I was at the American Historical Association in New York, the meeting of 1960, and I went to the phone and called Macmillan and asked for Peter Rittner, and he came on, and I said, I have a book, and I have somebody here who's the editor of Current History, says that you would like it, and so forth. He says, send it to me. A week later, I got a letter from him. It's a marvelous book.
How many pages did you send him?
I sent him the whole thing.
Which was
just
fat.
Yeah, just about that fat. It came out as a book of 279. Accepted it within a week.
Which book is this now?
This is the first one.
First book. Okay, right. Okay.
This is 1961. You find all of this in Who's Who. You see the dates.
Yes.
You see. All right. That's how I got my first book published. Now, when I signed the contract for that, 1961, they made me agree that I would give them my next book.
Sure.
You see? So in a couple of years, I said to Peter Rittner, I want the next book to be The World Since 1914. And he said, okay, let's sign a contract.
He didn't say anything like, that's a rather large subject, Carroll?
Peter Rittner thinks I am the greatest writer around.
Okay. Is he an editor?
He's gone. Left him.
Okay.
You see, now here's what happened, and I don't know whether we want to get this on tape, but I'll put it on tape. But look, you've got to be discreet.
Sure.
You know, you have to protect my future.
Sure.
As well as your own.
Sure.
All right. When Tragedy and Hope was signed, the contract, and right up to the last minute, which would be the spring and summer of 66, they were planning to bring it out in 2 volumes, boxed, for $17.50. Macmillan had been bought from Harold Macmillan at the Macmillan Company of England for $5 million, because he needed the cash. In the summer of 66, a holding company, Collier Books, which originally was Morgan, and they published Collier's magazine. Remember Collier's Weekly and so on? All right. Collier's Books, now I don't know who controls it now, and it's one of these holding companies, came in, they bought up the Free Press, you know, in Illinois, they bought up Brentano bookstores, they bought up Macmillan. They came in and they looked at what they'd bought and they said, you're spending money wildly and you're not taking in money. We got to stop it.
The accountants took over.
Yeah. So they said, no advertising on any books that are published for the next 6 months. You spent too much on advertising. And the editors like Peter Rittner screamed and said, we're not going to stay if this is the way you're going to do things. So they said, all right, 1 ad for each book. All right, I got 1 ad for Tragedy and Hope. And it was a 1/4 page in the New York Times book review, I believe. That's all.
How do you spell Rittner's name?
R-I-T-N-E-R. Peter Rittner. I imagine he's in Who's Who. He should be. Anyway, he has since left them. I don't know what he is doing. He still lives in the same place that I visited him in Riverside Drive up near the George Washington Bridge. But he works for some World Book thing or something.
There's World Publishers.
Something else. And what he does, I don't know, because he's never got in touch with me since he left.
And they also did not come out with the 2 volumes. Right?
No. And then when they saw it, they said, oh, this is going to cost too much. Cut it to 1 volume and cut the price $5. So that made it $12.50, but they never sold it at $12.50. They made it $12.95. So this is what it was sold. Now it went out of print. That was 66. It went out of print in 68. But in 68, Collier Books got in touch with me. I don't know how or why, and said, we'll bring out the last half of this as a paperback, and that's what I gave you. That came out in 68.
Right.
And that, I think, is still in print. But I can't get an answer. I can't get a straight answer to any question from them. For example, they never told me until 1974, when I was trying to fight the pirate who reprinted Tragedy and Hope, that it had been out of print. They told me it's out of stock, and we will republish when we get 2,000.
Right.
But they never could get 2,000. I've told you this, haven't I? Because they were telling everybody who wrote in that it's out of print.
Now,
And they denied it to me.
when did you realize there was a pirate edition? How did you find out?
I found out